All right, let's move to KwaZulu-Natal now and unpack the State of the Province address there, which was presented yesterday. Premier Nomusa Dube-Ncube made a range of promises regarding housing and investment plans in the province. Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan was there for us. She joins us now live. And Karinda, it was an address not without drama yesterday, given what took place with some of the EFF legislative members. But let's start with key matters around electricity and unemployment. What are the plans to try and address this?
Indeed. Well, of course, electricity is a countrywide crisis, Ayanda. Here we understand the KZN Premier telling us that there is a war room being established to discuss the KZN Energy Master Plan and essentially gave a list of electricity connections that will be undertaken over the rest of the year. But of course, load shedding will be impacting this. KZN, there are plans to establish a battery energy storage system to produce power, and this will be established in Umsunduzi, so near Pietermaritzburg. Now, as well, along with this, we understand there are plans to use tidal energy or start using tidal energy. But of course, there needs to be infrastructure built for this. No timelines have been given for this, but it will be a form of green energy, essentially. Now, you mentioned unemployment. KZN's unemployment rate is at 46.4%, extremely high. Almost half of the province's people are unemployed. Now, the KZN Premier gave a list of various opportunities for job creation, and this is paired with international investments, business creation, the increased capacity of the Dube trade port, as well as the port of Durban, so that's the Durban harbour, and the port of Richards Bay, where we see import and export, as well as the establishment of, for example, gold mine in Pongola, and the dispersion of the KZN Empowerment Fund. So this is for youth empowerment fund. So these are just a handful of some of the investment plans and job creation plans for the people of KZN, considering this extremely high unemployment rate. Now, of course, there are many socio-economic challenges that come with high unemployment, including crime. And here in KZN, we know this all too well. Now, in terms of a KZN government response, the Premier in her SOPA yesterday said that each department wants to pool together 10 million rand that will be used to invest in communities that are fighting the scourge of crime. And we know on the ground, in many areas of KZN at least, there are groups like neighborhood watches or community groups that will work together to try and fight petty crime in their area, and ultimately they need resources because they're doing this essentially because of the apparent failures of police in this area. There's going to be at least 1,800 additional police officers deployed to KZN, but the Premier says that she wants to reach out to national government to have retired detectives be brought back to investigate cold cases, to have current detectives focus on gender-based violence issues. This is something that raised eyebrows of many politicians, including the IFP, which is the official opposition. They suggested that youth instead be employed in the police sector to assist with the youth unemployment crisis and to have more energetic policemen ultimately on the ground to attend to crime. Now, this is just some of the national issues that we're focused on, but of course here in KZN, the issue of aging infrastructure has crippled many municipalities, specifically Durban. We've been reporting on this for a while. We understand that a total amount of 4 billion rand will be handed to various municipalities in various grants. For example, part of that is the municipal infrastructure grant that will be handed to municipalities to rebuild and re-strengthen their infrastructure. But the DA raised eyebrows and says, well, municipalities are not spending all of the money being given to them. In fact, only about 53% of this is being spent on what they're supposed to repair. Here in eThekwini, we found out very recently that the municipality only spent 6% of its budget on maintenance and repairs, despite the crisis of broken infrastructure leading to water leakages and sewage leakages. The Premier also, towards the end of her address, gave reassurance that the sewage infrastructure, specifically in eThekwini, has been repaired. However, Action SA said this is not the case, and they're actually taking this matter to court on Monday. Now, let's speak about the EFF. Remember, at the start of the State of the Province address, and apparently like the Northwest as well, and in the SONA we saw the EFF rising on a point of order, and they claimed that Premier Nomusa Dube-Ncube lied when she was at the State of the Nation Address debate very recently and spoke about relief funds. They claim that there is a misuse of relief funds, that many flood victims have still not received the relief they need to be housed properly. The Premier says that while all of the flood victims who were in mass care centres have been moved to temporary housing, and that currently there's a plan to build secure housing for the victims. But of course, timelines are needed for that. It was quite a chaotic moment when that happened, and after several requests made for the EFF members to be removed from the chamber, police were called in and a scuffle ensued, and ultimately the EFF, who were not present for the State of the Province address, and also King Misuzulu, who was there from the start, left when the scuffle began. And essentially because when one is in the presence of the Amazulu king in terms of the traditional rules that need to be abided by, there cannot be that sense of arguments in the way that happened in the legislature, and of course a security concern as well, and that is why King Misuzulu left with his entourage of security. So that is really just a snapshot right now of the KZN State of the Province address. The entire speech is online with more figures about matters like potholes and repairing bridges in KZN, with the budget that will be given to that, and budget speeches will follow now after the SOPA. But today, Ayanda, we'll go to some transit camps in eThekwini, where we understand that people are still waiting for promises that were made to remove them from transit camps to better housing. And in her SOPA, we saw yesterday the Premier using, well, almost a very similar paragraph that was used in the SOPA 2022 when it came to relief for transit camps. So we'll give you a wrap of those issues later today.
We look forward to it. Karinda, Jagmohan, for now, thanks very much indeed. Karinda's live to us there from Durban in KwaZulu-Natal.